Welcome to the Plenty of Ammo podcast, bringing you interviews with celebrities, sports stars, and many, many more. The Plenty of Ammo podcast, having real conversations about real life events. Sit back, relax, and enjoy some real conversation from a scouter that doesn't hold his tongue. The Plenty of Ammo podcast, with your host, Sean Ammo.
This episode is sponsored by The Casting Unicorn. The Casting Unicorn is a free resource for anyone looking to keep in the loop about castings for TV shows and brands. They post castings for quiz shows, game shows, dating shows, and have casts for brands such as Levi, Hot Noodle, I Saw It First, and Wrigley's Extra. You can join their free casting database at www.thecastingunicorn.co.uk or visit them on Instagram at castingunicorn.
Right, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of the Plenty of Ammo podcast. And I'm really excited to announce this week I've got a fella that I grew up watching. He turned a professional the year that I was born, but we won't go into that in too much detail. I've watched it for a long time. I watched him versus Peter Ebdon. I don't know if it was the UK or the World Championship way back when, and I always loved Peter Ebdon. One of my favourite snooker players, believe it or not, because I like the safety. I can't remember who won, but I remember that's when you come into my kind of spectrum of sports stars and a snooker star. But here we are, guys. We've got the one and only 2016 Northern Irish Open champion, Mark King. Mark, how's it going today?
Good, mate. Good, thank you. Yeah, pleasure to be on the show, and I'm only the third person, but I'm excited. It's gonna be a good little good chat.
No, I'm so happy to have you and say I'm grateful. And there's a story behind you, Mark. There's a story behind everyone. And I think in these instant Zoom, the kind of conversations, I really like them because it can go anywhere. And I'm not going to stitch you up or throw you under the bus. I'm literally going to have a conversation about how it began. So I'm not going to, I don't want me to chat loads. Let's talk to you.
Yeah.
So you turned pro in 1991. You're from Romford. So you're a London boy. You're a West Ham boy. Tell me, how did you start? How did you become a snooker player?
Well, from a sort of young age, my dad bought me like a little mini table at home. It was like a 6'3" that every sort of kid had, because obviously at that time, it's like 1980. Snooker was, it was on the up. There was a lot of snooker on the telly with like your Griffiths, Ray Reardons, and all that. So I got my 6'3" table, and then my neighbour got sort of a bit bigger table, like a 9-foot one. And then one of my school friends had a 9-foot pool table. So I was literally playing snooker on my table. I was playing on my friend's snooker table, and then on my other friend's like pool table. So obviously I liked it because, I wanted to play it all the time. And then it got to the stage when I got to about 9 or 10, my brother was a carpet fitter, or he still is a carpet fitter, should I say. And he went to the snooker club. And he was always sort of coming from work, get changed, shower, within 5 minutes he was gone. And I said to like my mum and dad, where's Andrew gone? He said, he's gone to the snooker club. So literally one of the next times that my brother went, I said to him, like, can I come? And obviously him being 6 years, I'm like 10. I'm just 10 years old. My brother's 16. He's got his Farrahs on. He's a casual. He's like all duded up and that. And so he's like, I'll take my little brother to the snooker club. So anyway, he takes me to the snooker club in Romford, the Lucania, and I'll get on a full-size table, and like from the first shot, I'm hooked, because I've been playing on a little table. All of a sudden, I'm now playing on a full-size table, and just absolutely fell in love with it. And because I played football, I was always a pretty good footballer. I was always getting like certain scouts coming around my house to come and play for the people who spotted Ray Parlour. They kept knocking at my an older guy. He was a scout, and he kept knocking on my door, saying to my dad, I want Mark to come and trial for this team who were near where I lived in Rush Green in Romford. But I was so hooked on snooker, I weren't really bothered. I was like, look, I don't want to play football. I want to play snooker. And literally, snooker took over my life because then, go on, Karen, you're about to say something.
What age was you when you started to realise that you were, you say you went to snooker club at 10, but at what age was you like, right, actually, I'm quite good at this? And also,
well, I was 10 when I started, and then when I was 12, I won the UK under 14 championships. So in 2 years, I sort of went from being someone that loved snooker, and when I first played at this club in the Luciana, I played a fellow professional. His name was Dave Grimwood, and he was the UK under 16 champion at the time, and he was the nuts. He was the next best thing. He was potted everything off the lampshade. And I remember the first time I played him, he gave me 60 start and wiped the floor with me. And then within 6 months, we was playing levels. So I was fortunate enough that I sort of spent the next sort of couple of years at the snooker club in Romford. But you got to remember, this club was a dive. It was the biggest shithole. And literally, tiles off the floor. Obviously, everyone smoked then in the place. You had fruit machines going, people putting their fist through the fruit machines because they'd lost, fights, gangsters, thieves. But it was an unbelievable atmosphere. It's the best club I've ever been to, that I've ever played in. In all the posh clubs and the ones I played in, for atmosphere and that, it was just the best. And it had a lot of,
do you think it made it into?
Yeah, I think so, because it taught me sort of, how to sort of get by, the rough and ready places, and I was quite cheeky. I was a bit cocky, and I didn't really give a flying FUCK. You know what I mean? And I just, a couple of times I was close to getting a slap, but I was lucky enough. My brother was 6 years older than me, and if anyone sort of come near me, my brother was like, leave him alone. But at the same time, said to me, look, shut your mouth. You're being a bit too cheeky for your own good. But yeah, it's a great club, and it was amazing, and really, really good times. Really, really good times.
I can see that the way you're saying it in your voice, that it brings back memories. And you were saying to me before, off air, that there's only, you're very close in age to Ronnie O'Sullivan, Mark Williams, and them. The class of, what do they call the class of '92? Such. So was you playing them along the way as you were younger, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think I first met Ronnie. I didn't sort of meet Mark Williams till a little bit older, but I first met Ronnie when I used to go to the New World in Ilford. It was a snooker club there, and a guy behind the counter, I'll never forget him, lovely fella. His name was Mickey Faithful. And he was the first person to ever give me free time. So my dad would literally take me to there on a Saturday morning. I'd get there at 9 o'clock, and from 9 o'clock till 6 o'clock in the evening, I was allowed free practice. So literally, my dad had dropped me off at 10 to 9, and then 9 till 6 I could play for free. And my dad would pick me up at 10 past 6, and I'd go home. But I'd play all day, every day. All day on a Saturday. And he was kind enough to help me, with my free time. Without people like Mickey Faithful, I'd have never ever got where I got, through his kindness. And then that's where I first met Ronnie O'Sullivan, because at the time, Dave Grimwood, the one I spoke to you about before, he was being sponsored by New World at the time. And I remember his dad Ted and his mum Carol, lovely people. They said, "Oh, there's a snooker player up here named Ronnie O'Sullivan." He was really small. He had a real round head. I used to call him P-head because his head was so round when he was little. But he was a great snooker player. Obviously, still is. But we sort of locked horns at an early age. We never really got on because I was always a bit cocky. He was always a bit cocky because, no disrespect, his dad had a lot of money and he sort of flashed it around a bit, and Ronnie sort of thought he was better than everyone else. And I didn't really give two F's about him. I didn't care if he had 100 million or nothing. I just didn't really like him, and we locked horns from an early age. But it was sort of the making of me, because like I didn't like him, he didn't like me, and we sort of, it helped us along our career because it was such a like rivalry that I never ever wanted to lose to him. He didn't ever want to lose to me. Yeah, and it sort of, it carried on, you know, later on as well.
And tell me this, Mark. So a couple of things. First of all, I know you've mentioned your dad a lot, and I would know through social media and stuff that you're very close to your dad. You obviously mentioned in the win in Northern Ireland, saying that he lent you the money to kind of get down there. Who, along with him, and obviously, so he's a big inspiration. But what players as well did you look up to at that time?
Well, I loved Alex Higgins because he was just that person that, you know, you never knew what he was going to do, and he was always flamboyant, always great to watch. And I just love watching him play. I remember used to sitting on my dad's lap when I was like 8 or 9, and we would sit and watch the final, and we both was cheering on Alex, but only because Steve was the best. And it was always like, you know, the bit like the Rocky scenario, you always want the underdog to win. And that's why, even though Steve was an unbelievable player and, you know, the best on the planet, I wanted Alex to win because, you know, he weren't expected to win. And he was just an unbelievable guy as well.
And give a shout out to your dad. Your dad seems to be a massive part of your career.
Yeah, I mean, we sort of, my dad gave, you know, listen, we came up on a council estate. We never really had much, but whatever they had, they gave me. You know, I never ever went without. And if they had to go without for me to go to tournaments, they did. You know, my dad would drive me up and down the country every Saturday and be a tournament, you know, 5 hours away. We'd get up at 5 in the morning. He'd drive me there. I'd go and get beat 3-0 and we'd drive straight home. But, you know, he did it for me. He, you know, a bit like, you know, my son, if he ever needs me to do anything, I'll do it for him because I'm grateful to my dad. My dad's always been there, and even, you know, when I won, he lent me the money to go in the competition, and like that's what it's all about. Just I'd give my last penny to my son Fred playing football. Like my dad give me his last pennies for me to get on in snooker, and I can sort of repay that to him. You know what I mean? Now he's older. My dad's 89 now, and he was quite poorly last year, and you know, I was there for him, and I'm quite proud to say that when he looks like he was on his death's bed, I was there, and I could sort of repay the sort of what he gave me. And like he said to me, like, you know, like, what do I owe you? Like, he's like, what are you talking about? You know, oh, you got me fish and chips. I went, yeah, but you dad,
yeah,
like. I don't get fish and chips. Oh, Dad, you owe me £4.80. You know what I mean? Or if I've gone and, you know, if I've gone and done an errand for him, and like, what do I owe you? Like, Dad, come on, you're my dad. Like, I love you. You know, things you did for me when I was growing up to achieve what I've achieved. You know, without you, I would never have been a top snooker player. So, you know, it's just nice to sort of repay.
Mark, tell me
repay it, and it was nice actually. Sorry, go on.
No, sorry, no. Continue, keep going.
He he gives me a Christmas card, and it was really nice because he always puts the same thing, but this time at the bottom he put "Thank you for everything you do for me," and like it was quite heartfelt when he done it. It was like lump in my throat. I had to leave the room because I felt myself choking up. But yeah, he's a lovely dad. He's an absolute diamond, and he would help anyone. Love him to bits. He's amazing.
I'm close to my dad, and I can see it in your voice that sometimes in life people don't expect you to be as close to your dad as maybe other people are, like with the mums, and there's this whole stiff upper lip in the British society. But listen, I can totally relate with that.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, Mark. So you mentioned those early days. You know, you competing against Ronnie, you're traveling tournaments here and there. I know in the second part of the podcast we're going to talk about what it's like being a professional snooker player and how tough it is. But seeing those early days, I know looking back, there was only maybe it was 12 tournaments a year that you could play in or something like that. Like, I
think when I turned pro in '91, I think there was 9 comps, and that was the whole season. And then it was sort of 12, and then it sort of died. And then there was like, at one stage, I think there was like 6 or 8 or something in the season. It was dreadful. It was just, you know, we lost the tobacco sponsorship, and people weren't really, you know, putting money into snooker. So obviously, at that times when I was in the top 6, yeah, it was tough, but you just got on with it. You know, you'd finish, you know, you'd start in August, September, and then round to May, where you'd finish the World Championships, you'd have 4 months off, and like literally.
What did you do then, Mark? Did you do expeditions, or what did you do?
I would forget about it for 3 months, phase month. Yeah, I did a few exhibitions here and there, but a lot of the time I just went on holiday, got drunk, had a good time, and just whatever really money I spent. So like, I was looking forward to getting back to playing again because earning money.
And do you mind me asking, like, well, you don't have to mention Japan, but see, at that stage when you're top 16 and there's only 8 foot, what are you? Well, is it a decent enough wage to live on, or is it kind of like, is it good? But you can
and I mean, well, when I first got in the top 16, you was guaranteed 80 grand before you hit a ball, and then I had some off the table money from logos, you know, sponsorship.
Yeah.
So I was on about 100 grand a year before I even played. So it was, don't get me wrong, it was decent money, but when you look at other sports, it's poor. It's really, really poor.
Yeah. And tell me this, Mark. So obviously down in China, you're up to superstars in China, aren't you? So I don't know if people who are maybe casual fans of snooker understand that. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I could assume that you could walk around London, and a lot of days you wouldn't be bothered. Some days you would, you know, with pictures and stuff like that. But the likes of yourself and any snooker player, you couldn't walk around China, could you?
I know what you're saying. I mean, if I'm walking around my local town, you get the odd people come up and go, "Oh, you're the snooker player," blah blah blah, picture, autograph, lovely stuff. But like in London, you know, don't really get recognised. China, you know, they love their snooker. So yeah, you do get recognised quite a bit more out there. Probably not someone like myself, but someone like Ronnie or Judd, you know, your Neil Robertson, Selby's and that, Murphy's, they're a lot more likely to get, you know, quite big crowds when they're playing. Where sort of when I'm playing, and this ain't being rude to me, you know, there's probably 5 people and a couple of security guards that are probably asleep anyway. You know what I mean? Which is quite funny. But you know, yeah, it is different out there. There's a lot more money out there. You know, we've really, you know, we've missed the money in China. You know what I mean?
And tell me this, Mark. I mean, you mentioned that there. You know, I've been at snooker events where I've watched some of the outside tables, and you're not far wrong in what you're saying. It's maybe a couple of dozen people, and then you've got the main arena as well, where you have to get through the first round to get there. But tell me this: so, see, at that stage of your career, is the World Championship everything, is it, or is it just a case you do your best and you can see where you can get? Because obviously, the World Championship is always on BBC, along with the Masters and the UK. And it was all before Eurosport and stuff. Was it just the World Championship that you put all your eggs into one basket, or was it just a case of we'll go to every tournament and see what happens?
Yeah, the latter, definitely the latter. I never made any tournament better than others. I just tried to prepare myself the best I could for whatever event. But obviously, a lot of that time was I weren't in the snooker club. I was, you know, betting shops or card schools and that sort of stuff. Yeah, so no tournament was any bigger than any other one, whether it was the World Championship, the UK, or you know, one in Torquay or somewhere like that. I just played every sort of match as it come and every tournament as it come, and hopefully did well and earned some money. And that's about it. Never really thought, like this is the worlds. I've got to really try harder, because I always used to practice pretty good anyway. So it was just, whether I was on the song and whoever my opponent was, whether they was on song as well.
No, fair enough. And tell me this, Mark. So at that stage of your career, you're in the top 16, so you're guaranteed a spot in the World Championship, aren't you?
Yeah.
Is there, what's it like when you get there and you get the crush pool and everything around it? Does everything just hype up? And do you think that, you're guaranteed to be playing in front of a crowd, you're guaranteed to be playing probably someone that's, the same level, if not, a bit better? Is it, describe what's like playing at the Crucible. Just tell me what's like.
Well, to be fair, I've never really, I've played good there, but I've never really played like really well. I've had a couple of decent matches there, but I've never really played a decent match and then played another decent match. I played well and then not as well. Do you know what I mean? So I've never made the quarterfinals, which is quite disappointing. I've won a lot of first rounders and I've lost a few. So yeah, it's not really been my favourite hunting ground, to be honest with you, where it probably should have been a lot better. But lots of times I weren't in very good places when I was there.
Well, Mark, tell me this. So I know we're going to talk about kind of the financial part of it, of being a sportsman in the second part of the podcast and how hard it can be. Tell me about the gambling. Would it be because you're a snooker player? Do you think maybe that because you're up late at night and you can be waiting around a lot and stuff like that, do you think that didn't help, or do you think it was just always in you?
No, it was always in me from the beginning. I used to go and live. I used to go and stay with my nan on a Thursday night. I used to get the bus, and we used to play, like, I don't know if you know Yahtzee. We used to play a game called Yahtzee. Great game. We used to play like cards. She used to give me a few pennies and we'd gamble between us. And then obviously the snooker club. There was always fruit machines at the snooker club. And in them days, like 1984, 85, there was a lot of money around. And even though the machines were only like £100 jackpot, people would sit there all day and put 700-800 quid in. You know what I mean? And yeah, and it was one of them things where that's where I've got my sort of gambling, because I used to sit and watch people playing the machines. And then obviously I remember the first time I put some money in a fruit machine, I put £1 in and I won £16. And at that time, like £16 in 1984, like weren't, oh my God, I've won the lottery, but it was probably about 100 quid in them, like from nowadays to then. So yeah, it was a lot of money. And then I proceeded to put it back the same day. So that's really where it started from, the gambling. Fruit machines.
What else did you do? Did you bet on football? And I mean, I'm assuming you're not allowed to bet on snooker, or did you?
No, you couldn't bet on snooker now. I think you could in the old days, but you'd never gamble on yourself. Obviously, it'd always be like an accumulator of a few other players and that sort of stuff. But funny, it's really weird actually, because when I really gambled at my worst, I never really gambled. I could have gambled on snooker, but I never gambled on it because it was always card schools. Even down to like they have virtual racing in the betting shops now. And even like when I last gambled, you'd bet on virtual horse race. I mean, how stupid, you know what I mean? Betting hundreds of pounds on a virtual horse race. But yeah, at the time, it's all I wanted to do. I didn't want to do anything else. And it just took over my life where I wasn't interested in gambling. I wasn't interested in practicing. I was more interested in going to the betting shop and the card schools and all that sort of stuff.
What would be like the biggest kind of amount that you've maybe won in one night, and the biggest amount that you've maybe blew in one night?
Well, to be fair, I wasn't one of them people that gambled really, really heavy. I was more of one of them ones where I'd bet every single race. I might have 40 quid on a dog, 60 quid on a dog. I've had I think the biggest bet I ever had was we got a tip for a dog at Romford dog track, and I had £2,500 on this dog, and it was supposed to be like an aeroplane, and literally the traps opened, and it was quite funny. The traps opened, and like my dog was in there having a fag and a cup of tea, and then my dog came out stone last, and literally, I swear to God, this dog showed pace around the back straight. It was like an aeroplane. It was one of the fastest dogs I've ever seen. and it lost by a short head. It lost like by this much for about, I think it was 5-2 at the time. So it was for about $7 or $8 grand. So that was probably the biggest bet I ever had. And I think I bet one of the other big bets I had $3 grand on a horse race, and it was 1-2 on. So obviously I was going to get my $3 grand and £1,500. So it was for $4.5 grand. And my horse, it was over the jumps. It was like a 2-mile race. And my horse over the last was like from here to like my shop up the road in front, right? The jockey fell off my horse, right? But he still had the stirrups, the ropes, whatever in the hand. And he was trying to get on, and his leg was up, and he was trying to get back on the horse. And at this time, you just couldn't make it up. By the time the second horse had jumped the last, my rider got back on the horse, started riding the horse again like this, and literally lost a short head. Oh, yeah, it was one of them ones. I was effing and blinding and kicking, and I was like a big baby. But yeah, that was that. Yeah, them two were the worst I'd ever had. But as I said, where I used to bet 20, 40, 60 pound every single race, and at the time when the roulette machines came in as well, I would be punting the roulette machines as well as on the horse and the dog. So it was irrelevant, because if I had £10 million in my pocket, I'd have still spent it all. It's just irrelevant to, if I earn £100 a week and I'm gambling 101, I'm in big trouble. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm a lad of a certain age, and I remember the roulette machines and all our friends, as you say, be pumping them. And, you'd be in a situation where maybe 4 years went out and 3 years were down with a face on you, thinking, and then that one person was up, and you're thinking, we've all just blew 50, 60 quid each, and you've walked away with 150, you're buzzing. But we should have just went and give you all money and walked out. It was I've been there, I know the feeling, and you never beat the bookies. Tell me this: you dedicated your win as like to your father and your family, and you say your wife got you out of a hole kind of when you won the Northern Irish Championship a few years ago. Tell me this: so when did you stop? When did you decide that you needed to stop? And how did that come?
Well, I'd sort of, funny enough, I'd had a really good couple of weeks. I'd won about $6 grand over this period of couple of weeks. And when I was going home, if I'd had a good win, I was never one of these gamblers that I hid money like a lot of compulsive gamblers. They hide money, don't give any money to their family. They just need it for their own stake. But I was one of them gamblers that I'd always bung the missus. Like if I won like a couple of grand, I'd bung her a monkey or a grand or something, and then I'd obviously give her money all the time. But they never ever went without. Even at my heart of gambling, they never went without. The mortgage was always paid. And most of the time it weren't my money that I was spending. It was like on a credit card or like a loan or that sort of stuff. But yeah, it just got to the stage where it just got really, really out of hand. Sorry, I lost my train of thought then. What was your question again? Really sorry.
I was just saying, at what stage did you stop? Like, why did you kind of?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so I'd had that week where I'd won 5-6 grand, blah blah blah, and then I'd a sort of moment where we was at Centre Parks. I was there with my wife. My son hadn't been born that long, and my daughter. So at this time, it's like 2003. My daughter's 4, my boy's 1, and we're at Centre Parks. And I remember walking around there and thinking to myself, like, what am I doing? I'm earning really good money, and I ain't got a pot to piss in. You know what I mean? I'm earning real good money. And I thought, well, what do I want to do? Do I really want to carry on living this life of practicing and gambling all the time? Or do I want to be one of these people that, wants to try and do good and better by myself? And, it weren't fair on the wife. So I decided to go to GA. And I've been going on and off ever since.
And did you lie or was you always open about where you were? Would you perhaps say, I'm giving you a scenario, right, I'm on my way to practice, but you were maybe spending half the time practicing, half the time?
Oh yeah, no, I lied. It was awful. Like she's in the kitchen now getting the Chinese out, so I ain't say too much. No, I'm only joking. No, I was a liar. I was a horrible liar. She'd ring me in the afternoon and she'd say, "Oh, where are you?" And I'd be, I've just popped out for something to eat, but I'd just run out the betting shop at the time. And then she'd ring me like an hour later and go, "Oh, you're all right. What are you doing?" I'm eating. "Oh, you're eating again?" I was just a horrible liar. I was just like, and it's horrible to say I'd have rows with the missus, get out so I could gamble. Just a real horrible existence. And I hate to say it, but it's just I was ill. I was just so ill with it, and nothing else mattered. And it wouldn't have mattered if my mum was laying there on her deathbed. I was more interested in gambling.
Did you do it alone, Mark, or were you with people, or?
No, I was always with people. I wasn't. I was really fortunate enough that when I gambled, it was always when at a betting shop or a card school. When the sort of online stuff came is when I got to GA. So I was really fortunate in that respect. I'd got there early enough not to have to, sit there and bet on my phone and that sort of stuff. I'd got out of it first.
Fair play. Hey, Mark, listen, that's, as I say, I've met people in my life who their life has been ruined by gambling, and it's good to see that you've come out the other side. So tell me this, so you kind of stopped it. Would you say, would that be early 2000s, did you say, or?
2009, well, the first time I ever went to GA was in 1997. That's the first time I went. I went there for 6 months. And then what I did, I went for 6 months and then stay there. I went there for 6 months and then I decided that gambling was better. Sorry, I'm moving around. I'm just getting comfy. Yeah, so I went there for 6 months and then I decided that gambling was better. So I went back to gambling. And yeah, I've been attending GA on and off for the last 2003 was when I went properly. So yeah, the last 19 years, and the time I've had off now is the longest time I've been off gambling, which is like nine and a half years. I think is the last time I bet.
Fair play, Tim. Fair play. So let's get back to snooker then, before we go to the second part of the podcast. So I'm trying to think of a word to use. You were a top 16 player. What was your highest ranking? Was it the top 5 or 6? Was it?
I think I was. No. I think I was like 11.
11.
I think it was 11 was the highest I've been. Yeah.
And you are of that age, along with the likes of Mark Williams, Ron O'Sullivan, Stephen Henrys. Tell me, who would be your kind of pals in snooker? Would you have like kind of a couple of guys that you're friends with, or are you just all very much keep yourself?
I think I can't really remember that much. I think because like I was still gambling at that time, I only really had friends like in the betting shops and that sort of stuff. Always had pals in the snooker club. But even when I was in the snooker club, I was just on the fruit machines. So literally, there was a few of us. There was a few of us in the clubs that used to play, obviously daily. But most of the time I would be on the fruit machines. But yeah.
No, fair enough. And tell me this, so before you won this title in 2016, obviously it's a ranking title, and Barry Hearn coming to snooker didn't he change things a lot. A lot more performance. And I do know at the time there was a lot of there was players kind of arguing over. Some players are saying it's great, because it gives us an opportunity. It's now we're looking back years on, you can see it's created a platform for a hell of a lot of players, and a lot of other players that maybe guaranteed the right into tournaments, they have to graft away now. What do you think, like kind of the revamp from Barry Hearn coming? Are you happy with it, or how do you feel about it now? A lot more
no, I was against it, not because it was Barry Hearn, but at the time I was like in the top 16. I was guaranteed a nice wage, and then all of a sudden Barry Hearn came in and went, right, no more guarantees. You all start from round one. Get on with it. You know what I mean? But it was hard because when Barry came in, they just sort of devised this 2-year system where, your points came off after 2 years. And then like there was a lot of fluctuation between the players because, if I earned 100 grand that year, and say Martin Gould earned 10 grand, then obviously Martin would go up if he did all right. So There was a lot of fluctuation in the rankings, but it was the fairest it had ever been. So all of a sudden, we've gone from a little bit of turmoil to the fairest system we've ever had. And then Barry Hearn comes in and goes, right, we want to be like the golf. We're all going to start in round one. We're going to, you know, same as the tennis, we're all going to start in round one. No one's guaranteed a penny. So all of a sudden, you know, you get this sort of, you know, not being rude, a little bit of a comfort blanket where, like, you know, I want to get a mortgage. So I go into the mortgage people and say, you know, my guaranteed earnings are 80 grand. You know, I need a mortgage for 300 grand. All of a sudden now, I go in to get a mortgage now. They say, well, what's your guarantee? I say, well, I'm guaranteed £250 in the shootout. And they give me a mortgage for like 8 pence. So
yeah,
it's all right for someone like Barry. Like, and I'm not being rude to Barry. Barry's done amazing for himself and his son, and the boxing have been great. But Barry always says, oh, I don't like me. You know, there's no room in sport for mediocre. But without mediocre players, you wouldn't get a sport, because in any sport, there's mediocre boxers, there's mediocre tennis players, mediocre golfers. But yeah, I don't like. I like what he did for the game in respect of getting more tournaments, because that's amazing. But I just don't agree with, like, you know, I've been a pro a long time, and when I was in the 16, I think I've earned my right. I've earned my right to be ranked up there and be. And even though I'm ranked like 30 odd at the minute, you know, I still think the top 16 should be guaranteed, you know, first round in the draw everywhere, and they should be at every venue because they've earned their spot.
Yeah,
and you know, if I'm in the top 32, yeah, and if I'm in the top 48, I've got to win 2 matches to get there. Then so be it. Like all these players that have come in and they're new to the tour, you know, they're playing John Higgins, Ronnie O'Sullivan, Sean Murphy, Mark Selby's first round. They've got no chance. They've got no chance to start with. You know, on the odd occasion, they might play absolute crap and they'll play out their skin and might nick a game here and there. But on the whole, they're better off playing people in their own ranking to get to another player a little bit higher ranked, to play another player, you know, and get a bit of experience before, you know. Imagine you turning pro, Sean, and like all of a sudden your first game's John Higgins on the telly.
Yeah.
For one, you're going to crap yourself because you've never been on the telly. 2, John Higgins, it's like his back door. You know what I mean? And like Ronnie O'Sullivan, every game's on the match table. So for someone like them, it's like a practice game. For you, it's like the hardest game ever. And you probably ain't going to pot a ball.
Yeah. No, do you know what? I've watched a lot of snooker over the years, and I can completely see what you're getting at. And it's funny because we're definitely going to discuss this a bit more now in the second part of the podcast. It's actually, I remember Stephen Henry saying the same thing and stuff like that. But like, yeah, you make a good point. So you could have a boy he's going to play Ronnie O'Sullivan or John Higgins, and that's his chance. But it's gone. It's gone in half an hour, and he could have maybe another chance of playing to one his level. I get what you're saying. What we're going to do now, Mark, is we're going to take a quick break, and in the second part of the podcast, we'll talk about the financial part of snooker, the implications of what Barry Hearn's done, and obviously we'll go to that big win that you had in 2016. So in the meantime, thank you for listening to Plenty of Ammo podcast, and we'll be back shortly.
This episode is sponsored by the Casting Unicorn. The Casting Unicorn is a free resource for anyone looking to keep in the loop about castings for TV shows and brands. They post castings for quiz shows, game shows, dating shows, and have casts for brands such as Levi, Hot Noodle, I Saw It First, and Wrigley's Extra. You can join their free casting database at www.thecastingunicorn.co.uk or visit them on Instagram at castingunicorn.
Welcome back to the second part of the Plenty of Ammo podcast, and I'm here with Mark King, and we were just kind of getting in a free-flowing conversation there about the world of snooker and the rankings and the prize money and, you know, the changes that Barry Hearn's done. There's been a lot of controversy over the last couple of years, and there's 2 sides of the argument. And I was chatting to Mark here about how he went from, he said, a comfortable enough living in the top 16, which he earned his right in. He didn't just you don't just become a top 16 player overnight. You spent years and decades grafting at it. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, no, actually, you know, that's it, back to the beginning. And it's maybe opened doors for some players, but these doors kind of get shut straight away, as you mentioned, being on like a match table. So tell me, when he changed all this, how did you get on in the first, like, say 5 years? How did you get on doing it?
Not very well. Not very well, because I just didn't really, it was all of a sudden, I'd gone from having a financial comfort blanket to then all of a sudden being guaranteed nothing. So now all of a sudden, every single match is like life or death. So I was on a sort of a downward spiral because I wasn't playing very well. Didn't really like the change. And obviously I was under so much pressure because I had a family to feed. So it weren't very good for me at the beginning. Once I sort of got my head around it a little bit, I started doing a bit better. But I still to this day don't agree with what went on. And now all of a sudden they've changed it again. All of a sudden, like the home nations, the top 16, their games are being played at the venue. So, like next week, I'm playing in the Regal Welsh qualifier. I'm playing Liam Highfield at the qualifiers with no one there, no one at all, because we're not allowed crowds in still. But we're everywhere. Every other sport have got crowds. Football, I just don't get it. I really, really don't get it. So no crowds, but at Wolverhampton today, Jimmy Robinson just beat John Higgins, packed crowd.
Yeah.
But yet we're having qualifiers with no one there, so no atmosphere. But then the top 16 go straight to the venue and have their game held over. So yet again, the top 16 get another bunch where they don't have to go to the crappy qualifiers where no one's there. Excuse me. They go straight to the venue where they've got a nice crowd to watch them. So yet again, if you're not in the top 16, you just get not very treated very well.
Yeah, but that's the thing. So I know there's a ranking system now to 6,400. See if you're a snooker player now. I looked there. You're 34 in the world. You said about 30 now. So you're on the cusp of you're a couple of good results away, a couple of good tournaments away from being there, the top 16. But see players that are in that kind of spectrum, say between 50 and 100. How tough is it? Because I as a snooker fan, I look at the prize money. You can go on Wikipedia. It's well established.
Yeah.
The shootout, that's got a lot of controversy because you get a lot of money for that and stuff. But like as a snooker player that isn't maybe within that top kind of say 50, how hard is it? And are they struggling to make a living? Because it appears to me like they are at times.
Yeah, I mean, I'd even go down to saying it's really a lot lower than that. It's not even the top 50. You're talking about the only ones that make a real serious living are probably the top 16. Everyone else is struggling. Even the top 32 players, if they have a good season, they might earn 100 grand if they do really well. But no disrespect, 100 grand ain't a lot of money.
Yeah,
it's not a lot of money. You're in the top 32 of a sport all over the world. You look at golfer. If I was number 34 in the world at golf, I'd be wiping my ass with 50s. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. Tennis players. And like, this is what makes me laugh. When Barry came in, he turned around and went, we're going to be like the golfers. We're going to be like, the tennis players and all that. We're never going to be like them. We're never going to be like them. And now, obviously, we lost China for a couple of years due to COVID. We lost massive revenue in our sport. And have World Snooker tried to replicate it? No, they haven't. They've put not very good tournaments on. They've tried. They've put like best of 3 tournaments on. And like they've got money in the bank and they're not prepared to throw it back for us. You know what I mean? We've lost a lot of money. That all they're worried about is the money they've lost. They're not worried about the players. If all the players said, "Do you know what? We're not playing," they'd be in serious trouble.
Yeah. And Mark, do you think there's certain players as well? I don't know. I'm just assuming this or thinking in my head. Some certain players get special treatment now. I'm not going to mention.
Yeah, massively. 100%. I'll give you a prime example. Last week, I played in a qualifier, and I forgot my shoes.
Okay.
Right, I forgot an absolutely stupid thing to do, but I'm playing at 10 in the morning. So at 10 to 9 in the morning, I ring the tournament office and I say, look, I forgot my shoes. can I play in the shoes I got? And the shoes I had on were a pair of smart Prada trainers. Very smart, black, white sole. It's not being shown on TV anyway. No, you can't wear them because they haven't got a heel. But 3 or 4 years ago, Ronnie O'Sullivan says, I've twisted my ankle doing running. So he plays in a pair of blue ASIC trainers. Mark Williams had gout a couple of months ago. He's playing in slippers on the TV.
Yeah.
So what they do is, if your face don't fit, you have to apply by the rules. If you're someone like Ronnie, he does what he wants. Don't care what anyone says. Ronnie does what he wants. He rings up, tells them when he wants to play. Ronnie O'Sullivan never plays at 10 in the morning in any tournament ever. Qualifier, anyway. It'll be the last day and it'll be in the afternoon or the evening. And it's ridiculous. Yeah. It's absolutely ridiculous. Like, don't get me wrong, as a player, he's the best player I've ever seen. And I love watching him play, but it's just ridiculous. He can just say, I want to play this day, I want to play that day. And literally, he could turn up in a pair of shorts and say, I'm playing in these, and that's it. And they'll go, oh, yes, Ronnie. No problem, Ronnie. Just do what you want, Ronnie. It's just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
And have you noticed that's been going on for years, or always been like that?
Oh, yeah. It just goes on like, you know, when like Ronnie didn't play for a year, and like Barry Hearn said to him, well, if you play in the World Championship and win it, I think he said, I'll give you £1 million or something. And when he won the event, Barry Hearn went in there with like a suitcase full of money for him. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, yeah,
it's
like
Ronnie, off the cuff, is it? It's just not like people know about this.
Like the Turkish Masters. Like, Ronnie's not going because the promoters won't pay him to go. Why should they pay him to go? John Higgies ain't asking for a fee. Mark Selby ain't asking for a fee. It's ridiculous. Yeah. It's absolutely ridiculous.
And they're world champions in their own right as well.
It makes me laugh. He goes and does exhibitions all around the country, gets 8-10 grand a night, which he deserves. And he does like a weekend, then he pulls out of a ranking event. It's ridiculous. They should start fining players, or if they pull out of an event for no apparent reason, then they should miss the next event. Don't care who you are.
Mark, tell me what happened with the tournament where you didn't bring your shoes. Did they just say you can't play then, or what happened?
Basically, what happened was I had to wear the tournament director shoes.
Right. Okay. You looking?
I went to Asda. I went to Tesco's. I went anywhere that was open because I'm playing at 10 in the morning, so nothing's open.
Yeah.
So, like, if it had been in the afternoon, I'd have come to Marks and Spencer's, just bought a cheap pair of comfy shoes. Because it was 10 in the morning, I couldn't do it. Do you know what I mean? But listen, it was my own fault. I'm not disputing that. It was my fault.
No, but I see your point.
I'd left my shoes at home. But to be fair, you know, let's show a little bit of, you know, common sense. Look, he's left his shoes at home. He's got a pair of very smart Prada shoes anyway. We'll let him play in them. Yeah.
It's stuff like that people like me and snooker fans across the world don't hear about. And let me go back into the struggles of a snooker player. So you say, I mentioned the top 50, but you said even after the top 16. How bad are the struggles for players, Mark? Because these are just normal fellas. These have got families to support. I see players dropping off the tour, and then you might not see them on a tour again for like 12 years. And you're like, what have you been doing for the last 12 years? Can a snooker player make a half-decent living out of expeditions and playing amateur events, or do you have to go and graft and find another job?
Well, I mean, exhibitions, if you're someone like Ronnie, is fine because he's getting absolute lumps, but which he deserves. So no problem with that. But someone that's lower ranked down, they're not going to go and get 5-10 grand a night. They're probably getting 500 quid or £1,000 for an exhibition for the night, which will help them out. It's just like, it's so hard for them players because you got to remember, all these low ranked players are only playing the top players nearly every time in the first or second round. So what we was trying to say was, instead of having, you know, no money for the first round, instead of having nothing and then £3 grand, we were saying, why don't you make it £500 for the first round loser and then £2.5 for the second round. So at least if someone lost first round, they'd have their expenses paid for, and that sort of stuff. But I don't think it will ever happen. But something like that should happen. If you're on a tour, you should be guaranteed a wage.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we're entertaining people on the TV or streaming. Like they're having stream tables, and everyone's betting on these stream tables. They're getting X amount per day per table. And I mean, listen, I don't know. I've been told that it's 40 grand per table per day.
Wow, and you could potentially get nothing by losing.
Yeah, they're apparently they're getting this off the bookmakers. Listen, the money might not be correct, but I know they're being paid from obviously the bookies, so they can live stream and the people can bet on the snooker. So they're making a fortune each day, and the players that are getting beaten first round ain't getting nothing.
That is just.
They're not even throwing it back into the game, like turning around and going, well, do you know what? Like, we're getting X amount through these qualifiers. So what we're going to say is, if you get beat first round, we're going to give you 500 quid each, just as a little something for yourselves to pay your expenses. Because without the qualifiers and the streaming, we won't be earning this money. So they're not even throwing it back into the game.
That's just mental. Well, let's talk about the shootout. So the shootout's got a lot of kind of controversy. I've seen that you were playing there yourself a couple of weeks ago. Now, I'm going to be honest. This is my honest opinion. I hope I don't offend you or anyone will say this. When I first seen the shootout, I thought no, because I am a guy that grew up with my father watching like Steve Davis and John Higgins and the safety players.
Yeah.
And I find myself one of these not stuck up snooker fans, but one of these snooker fans that are like, well, I'll sit there and I'll watch it till 1 a.m. and I'll watch the safety battles. I can't stand some people, they'll watch Ronnie O'Sullivan and they'll watch Stephen Henry and they'll watch no one else. So when the shootout started, I thought, well, this is just weird because it's not, good players getting beat. But now I've kind of gone the opposite direction. And I'm like, wow, this is just amazing. You've got like the likes of Rhian Evans and other players playing it. What's your opinion on the shootout? You've obviously competed in it. Do you like it or what do you think about it?
I must admit, when it first came into the game, I liked it. I really liked it. Really good fun. The crowd were, drunk most of the time, shouting out stuff. And it was really good fun. Really, really good fun. No, but then once they decided to make it a ranking event, all of a sudden, it's now gone from just about having a good time and trying to nick a few quid to now all of a sudden, these games could affect people's careers. These matches, could stop someone from staying on the tour. So now all of a sudden it's gone from a good laugh to actually quite serious. And like, how can it be a ranking event? You foul and pick the white ball up, put it anywhere on the table. It's ridiculous. That's what annoys me is that how can you pick a ball up and put it where you want?
So what you're saying is have the tournaments, have the laughs and giggles and the competition.
Have the same money, have exactly the same money, the same rules, but don't make it a ranking event. Yeah. Most of the top players don't enter it anyway.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because they don't need the 50 grand because they've got so much money anyway. Yeah.
And tell me this: what's your opinion on the likes of and if you don't want to comment, that's completely okay because it's I've heard both sides of views on this. What's your opinion on like some of the ladies competing with the men now? How do you feel about that? Or do you feel?
Well, I've got nothing against them competing. I just don't think that they should have got a tour card, and that's just my honest opinion. And it's not due to them being ladies because when you go to Q school, if you're good enough, you get through.
Yeah.
And they've been to Q school and they haven't really done any good. So if they was getting beat like the last matches 4-3 and they were just getting pipped at the post, I'd say, well, do you know what? But why should they get a tour card because they're ladies?
It's taking away an opportunity for someone else.
I don't rock up in a skirt and say I want to be a professional netball player.
Yeah.
Do I? It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. And Like, I've got nothing against Rianne, I've got nothing against Onyee, but and I'd say the same about Jimmy. No, Jimmy's got a tour card, Ken's got a tour card, and like, how many years are they going to give it to him?
Let's talk about Jimmy and Ken and Stephen Henry to that degree as well. So obviously Ken Doherty and Stephen Henry are former world champions. Obviously Henry's probably one of the best in the game. Jimmy's never won it. Obviously everyone knows his backstory. And stuff. But yeah, so they get tour cards. Is it because they put bums on seats? But then when you think about it, White doesn't always be on the star table, nor does Doherty. So how does that? Is it because they've just been Longsteads in the game, or why does it happen?
I don't know. I really don't know. And listen, people still love watching Jimmy play, but like as people said, like Hendry got his 2-year tour card, and I think for the first year he never even played. He didn't play in any events whatsoever. So at some stage, you've got to turn around and go, well, do you know what? Like, there's youngsters that want to come through that deserve these cards more than they do. Because listen, they've had like Hendry's earned silly amounts of money in the game.
Yeah,
he's won everything. Great player. Why is he taking someone else's tour card?
Yeah.
Why?
I get what you mean. And he hasn't really won. He's been out the game for a long time. It's kind of yeah. I'll tell you what, we've got about 5-10 minutes left. Let's go into the practice part of things, Mark. So I'll bring Stephen Henry into it. He said that he didn't want to kind of embarrass himself. That's why he didn't do it. He wants to practice. I was chatting to you over the last couple of days. You've been practicing all day. How important is practice to make sure that you're sharp for these matches? So, a whole day of playing snooker, I would say it's quite draining mentally. And is it as important? Because all you hear when you hear interviews, I need to practice. And then, there was a famous interview, wasn't it, with Mark Williams a couple of years ago where he didn't really practice and he rocked up and won a couple of tournaments and he couldn't believe it. So there's a big thing about how he couldn't believe he'd done that because he never practiced. How many hours a week, even now, Mark, do you put into practice?
Well, at the moment, I went and played a young guy today. I went to JP's in Harlow. One of a good friend of mine, Jason Pegram, he owns it. And I went and played a young amateur named Jack Healy. And we played 3 best of 7s. We started about 11 o'clock and we finished about 4 o'clock. We had about a half hour where we had a break. So if you're playing someone, you can play 3 or 4 sets a day. Or if I'm playing on my own, I'd normally get to the club between 10 and 11. And I'd normally do a couple of hours, have a bite to eat, and then have another couple of hours. So I'll probably do about 3 or 4 hours a day solo, or I might do a bit more if I'm feeling sort of in the mood. But I don't overdo it because I think sometimes you overdo it and then you don't put as much effort in because you're sort of a little bit drained and a bit tired. So, but I normally play 7 days a week.
Wow, and that's the commitment.
So, like tomorrow's Saturday. I will in the morning. I'll go snooker for a couple of hours. Then I'll put my football boots on. I'll go and play football for a couple of hours, and I'm getting ready. And I'm going to do an exhibition in Hastings tomorrow night. So that's my Saturday.
That's a busy Saturday after obviously doing this podcast on a Friday evening. So let's go to it, Mark. We've mentioned it a few times. I was watching the clips on YouTube. I actually forgot about that the last couple of frames and how tense it was with Barry Hawkins. He was a top professional in his own right, the Northern Irish Open champion. It was your first ranking title. What a moment! And you could see it hold back the tears, and you could see what you were saying. You waited a long time for this, and what was that moment like? And can you at least say now that no matter what happens in the rest of your career, you've won a ranking title, and you're in that small category of players?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the nicest things was that it was the Alex Higgins Trophy as well, and obviously, as I said to you earlier, sitting on my dad's lap watching Alex play, and I loved watching him play. So I think that was one of the first ones. So to have my name on it for the first time was amazing. And just the whole I've done it, and you can go home and not, because like 9 times out of 10 you go home and you got beaten, it's disappointment, and it's like, I should have played that shot better, or I could have done this, could have done that. And it was just one week where I went home and I was like, I've won it. I haven't got to think about that match. I haven't got to think about that silly red I missed or the black I missed, that sort of stuff. So it was nice. It was just nice to have a trophy and just think all them years of hard work of actually, not being one of them players. Oh, is he the best player ever to win one? And getting on as well in my 40s. No one thought I could win it, and then all of a sudden Hamilton won a couple of months later.
Yeah,
amazing.
That's 100%. Anthony Hamilton again, and he's another one of those kind of same generation players like yourself, and Higgins and Henry and Williams. And so 9-8. Let's go back to that. Was it the second to last frame and the safety battle with Hawkins? And what are you thinking at that stage? Are you thinking, oh no, just get a couple of easy shots to get over the line, or are you thinking, nah, let's graft in? This means everything. What's going through your mind mentally at that stage?
What in that the pink and black frame when it was just pink and black? Yeah, well, to be honest with you, lots of people have asked me about that, and the only reason I carried on was the simple reason the black was hanging over the hole.
Yeah,
and I thought, do you know what? Like, that's the only chance I'm going to get 7 points is if I rest the pink on the black and he fouled 7. It's the only chance I got, but it's a 1 in 1,000 shot because 9 times out of 10. The pink's going to come down, clip the black in, and it's going to be 8-all. But it was just mad. At one time, like, I probably played one of the best shots I've ever seen. I've ever seen in my life to rest and get the 7 points. So yeah, it's one of them things where, like, listen, miracles do happen, and it was one of them things. It was a 1 in 1,000 shot, and people would gamble like millions of pounds and say he'd never get a snooker there, millions and millions and millions of pounds. But it was that 1 in 1,000 shot, and it happened.
And fate meant to be, as you say. So hey, what a moment for you. Okay, so you mentioned now you're in your 40s, Mark. I would imagine. Well, I'm not gonna imagine, but over the last couple of years watching snooker, obviously the likes of Williams and O'Sullivan and yourself, and even like the likes of Jimmy White, he's the perfect example of playing into the 50s. Steve Davis played into the 50s. What's the plans? I mean, are you just going to keep grafting away until you get bored of it? What are your aspirations, or what is your mindset now? Are you thinking get back to top 16, or are you thinking let's just enjoy it?
No, I want to get back. I mean, I'm still really, really learning. Still learning about myself, learning about my game. I still need to improve on lots of stuff. I wouldn't go to the club 7 days a week if I didn't think I could still, play decent stuff. And it is a bit frustrating at times. You practice so hard and you go and play real shit. But that's just the game. Sometimes it's a bad day at the office, nothing you can do. Wipe your mouth and just get on with it. And like happened a couple of weeks ago, I played in the Turkish qualifier. I got beat by Zaki Shorty 5-1. And I played awful. But it happens sometimes. Everyone has a bad day. And it was one of my bad days at the office. So as long as I can still compete and I can still, do some damage when I'm playing well, then I still think, I can win another event. I can still, I got to the semis of the English Open, and I lost. I was 4-2 up against Neil and not really playing any good, and I still battled away and lost 6-4. So I know I've got the safety game. I know I've got like the craftiness and the grinding. I just need to have a little bit more of the flair and a few bigger breaks. That's the sort of thing I need to improve on.
Well, hey, fair enough. And it's inspirational seeing that you see in your face that you really still do want this. And Mark, I'm one of these snooker fans that I've had my favourite couple of players. That I'm going to be honest, I've always been Peter Ebdon, and it was Henry when he was playing, and I like Ebdon for obvious reasons with the stuff that I love, the safety battle. And I've always had maybe another 5 or 6 players that I've watched casually. And as you mentioned, I always like the underdog. So I think there's a lot of times I've watched you playing Ronnie, playing John, playing Mark, and I've always rooted for you. And I'll use
thanks, bro.
I have. And I'm Sean Murphy. I hate to say this, I used to hate Sean Murphy because I remember when he come through and he won the World Championship, I was like, who's this youngster? He's got no right to win and being a qualifier and winning it. Then he just kept winning, and I hated it. And then as he started to get a little bit older, he started losing matches. And now I've become a huge Sean Murphy fan because I always see him against the likes of Ronnie and John and Selby and stuff. And you think, and I always want Sean Murphy to win. So I love the underdog. I'm not saying that you're an underdog or you're not a top professional, but
No.
You've gained a big fan today. And thank you so much for doing this. It's episode 3 of the podcast. You're my first sports star. When you're next over in Northern Ireland for the snooker, you've definitely got a pint on me or two if you're up for it.
I'll tell you what. When next time I'm in Ireland, come to the tournament and you can treat me to a Nando's.
There we go. Perfect. There we go, Mark. So there we go. Nando's. I'll get you a Nando's when you're next over in Northern Ireland. And 100%, as I say, I'm not too far from Belfast ways anyway, so I'm sure we could get that sorted. But listen, enjoy your Chinese. Get a good night's sleep for your practice and your football tomorrow. All I can say is I hope West Ham do well this season, as long as it's not on Liverpool's expense. And yeah, mate, you'll never walk alone. Thank you and good luck. And hey, all I can say is for someone like me who's doing a small time podcast, to get someone as big as you on and to give your time up, it means the world. So thank you so much.
This episode is sponsored by The Casting Unicorn. The Casting Unicorn is a free resource for anyone looking to keep in the loop about castings for TV shows and brands. They post castings for quiz shows, game shows, dating shows, and have casts for brands such as Levi, Hot Noodle, I Saw It First, and Wrigley's Extra. You can join their free casting database at www.thecastingunicorn.co.uk or visit them on Instagram @castingunicorn.